Welcome back, my legends, and today I'm going to explain Bangalore stories from the Outlands using the Pathfinder's quest book to fill in some important details that the cinematic did not address. Also give a bit of a timeline so people can understand how the cinematic should work with the lore, because a lot of people seem confused on what was happening. Also, if you don't leave a like on this video,
penalty is death.
So in order for you to fully understand what's happening in the cinematic, we first have to start off with this scene right here. Now, this scene is very important because this takes place after Anita and Jackson graduate from the academy. Now, if you read the Pathfinder's quest book, you will know that during their graduation, they learned that their brother Zeke had died in the planet Typhon because BT and Jack Cooper destroyed it. Now, for those of you who don't know Zeke, he didn't become a soldier, he became a scientist that worked on research and development on the planet Typhon. Now, this is all important because what happened is that Bangalore was determined than ever to watch the militia burn. And so because of this, Jackson was so worried about his sister that he decided to transfer to her unit just so that way he can keep an eye on her. And so because of this, we see them practicing their aim in Gridiron. And this is where Zeke tells us about their family history, that for generations, their family has been fighting this war. So the Williams family has been fighting for the IMC in the frontier for about 40 plus years, because it all starts with the Titanfall Wars, which then leads up to the Frontier Wars where Titanfall 1 and 2 take place, and then it ends with the Battle of Gridiron in the year 2715. So this is why later on in the cinematic, Scryer calls them the heroes of the IMC, and that their family are well-decorated soldiers, because most of them, from what we see from the flashback, were former pilots. And so the next important detail you need to know is that Gridiron was the last stronghold of the IMC. They called all resources from the Outlands and the Frontier to go to Gridiron, but what happened is that a lot of the personnel started to leave. Kuben Bliss told everybody that they were in the wrong side and that it was time to quit what they're behind, while the remnant fleet that was AI controlled decided that Gridiron was a lost cause and abandoned it. So for those of you wondering how the militia were able to infiltrate the planet when it was literally their stronghold, it was because people kind of saw the writing in the wall and they knew it was over, so they started abandoning their positions, which leads us to Bangalore and Jackson fighting in Gridiron. Now, originally this is not how the book went. What happened is that Jackson woke up his sister, grabbed her and took her to the Hestia, and then they basically left to the Outlands. But in the cinematic, it's shown that they were fighting in Gridiron. Bangalore gets injured by a holopilot, which, by the way, this is not Joe's Mirage's uncle because he doesn't have his 6-4 markings on the helmet. And so this holopilot was able to stab Bangalore in the stomach, and that's when Jackson found her, took her to the IMS Hestia to get healed, and that's when Jackson was looking at the battlefield and started to realize that Gridiron was lost and decided to ignore the order to get into attack formation and to run away from the battlefield, which he knew his sister would not have wanted. So that's why he activated the status chamber to put her to sleep. Now, there's a few details here that they did not mention in the cinematic. One of them being that Jackson was not the highest rated unit in the Hestia. There was a guy named General Lewis, which I'm guessing they scrapped that character so that way Jackson can take blame for running away from the battlefield. And so the next thing that's very important, which they did not mention at all, which I was kind of surprised, is that in order for the Hestia to get from Gridiron in the Frontier to the Outlands to the planet Gia, that would have taken a 20-year trip. But because Jackson smuggled this device that his brother Zeke was working on in the planet Typhon, which was recovered, with the device he was able to use that on the drone tribe of the Hestia to make a 20-year trip into a 1-year trip. Now, it's not known what happened after, but it's kind of hinted that because he used this device, nobody really knows what happened in the final battle of Gridiron, because it kind of started this communications blackout that eventually will reach the Outlands in the next 5 years, where people would not be able to communicate for a while. And so all you have to know for now is that Jackson and Anita are heading towards the Outlands in the next year. And so when the Hestia reaches the Outlands, somehow Jackson crashed the Hestia into the planet Gia, more specifically Storm Point. Back to the cinematic, we see that Bangalore wakes up from her little status chamber after being healed, and she realizes that they're no longer in Gridiron. And while Bangalore was glad that her brother Jackson was okay, she kind of wanted to know what happened at the Battle of Gridiron, which he lied to her, telling her that they ordered a retreat, and that's how they ended up here. Now, because of this, Bangalore went back to the control center and started to remember what really happened and realized that her brother basically just abandoned the battlefield. And this is where things get interesting, because Bangalore sends an encrypted message to any IMC personnel or facility, which they were non-operational because most of them left to Gridiron, all except one in the planet Solus. They were the last ones to leave in the year 2719. So for the people wondering why there was still an IMC pilot in the Outlands when everybody was ordered to go back to Gridiron, it's because this guy was probably stationed in Solus when he got the emergency contact message from the planet Gaia. And this is all important because when Bangalore confronts her brother about that he lied to her that there was no retreat, he tells her that they should have been one and they were fighting a lost cause and the IMC never really cared about them. Now, the reason why Jackson said this, the reason why he left the battlefield and was okay being labeled a traitor is because he knew the truth. You see, Jackson got close to this doctor, which could be the doctor we see in the cinematic, that told him the truth that the IMC Ares division did cruel experiments on civilians and were going to use the fold weapon to destroy the planet Harmony, and this is why the militia destroyed the planet Typhon and they sacrificed thousands in order to save billions. Now, this had to be earth-shattering for Jackson because just like Anita Williams, they were kind of raised to believe in their leaders. They were raised to believe that they knew better than they did and that they would lead them to the right path.
Good soldiers follow orders.
So once Jackson realized this, he went from serving the IMC in order to protect his family. Now, this is why Jackson told Anita to open her eyes. The leaders of the IMC have lied to them all this time. And so when Scryer showed up wanting to execute Jackson for being a traitor, Bangalore got in the way and told him that they should just take them back to Gridiron, which is not going to happen because that's a 20-year trip. And the device that Jackson used to get to the Outlands within a year, well, he kind of threw that away once he realized it didn't have any power left. And so that's why Scryer told her that that was not going to happen. Now, the next scenes is when Jackson and Bangalore fight Scryer, and I have a few issues here and there. I might make that into a separate video because this video I just want to focus mainly on lore. The final part is the thing that confused a lot of people. And so what happened is that after the fight, Jackson knew that he was going to be a wanted man because they're going to think that Strider was the one that got killed by him because he is a certified pilot, and because of this he's going to be hunted down. And so he told his sister he wanted to stay on the planet by herself. She said no because family. And so because of that, for the next 5 years, Bangalore and Jackson were taking odd jobs in the Hestia 2 when a grenade out of nowhere exploded in the other hull of the ship. And that's how Anita lost her brother Jackson in the planet Solus. And we know that Jackson survived because according to Anita, she said that he put on his jump pack every morning. And so in the year 2721 to the year 2727, she finally found out that her brother Jackson was still alive when she saw a recording of him. And ever since then, Bangalore kind of joined the Apex games to raise money to go back to her planet of Gridiron and also find any clues to where her brother Jackson could be. And so the last thing I'm going to talk about, my legends, is Bangalore's bottle caps. Now, these things are very special because when a Williams is about to be sent to deployment, they have this big party with their family, and at the end of the party, they take the bottle caps from the last beer they have and make it into a bracelet because they have this belief that one day those bracelets will guide them back to each other someday, even her family in Gridiron. And so the moral of the story, my legends, is very simple. Don't be a snitch like Bangalore. And so yeah, my legends, I'll see you next time. Peace.